What a joyous group. It's really fun to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. So, yes, as you were looking at those maps of Chaparral, there was a kind of a blank space right along the coast that doesn't quite get the respect that it deserves. And it's Maritime Chaparral, and that's what I'm going to be talking today. And I'm going to start out by just saying that being able to give this presentation has really been great for me, because I had to go back, I had to look at what I did, and I had to reflect upon it. And I'm going to just start out by saying that, you know, there really are two. Let's see if this works. Can you see that? That didn't work. Like that. Oh, well.
It's the top button, I think the very top, is it not?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, I didn't use it, sorry.
Okay, I can, let's see, is there a pointer maybe? Is that showing?
Yeah, it works.
Nope.
Yeah.
That does?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna just start out by saying there really are two versions of Maritime Chaparral. There's lowland Maritime Chaparral. That's the version that the regulatory agencies are very, keenly familiar with. It's primarily often associated with being within the fog, underneath the fog zone. But there is another Maritime Chaparral, I will argue, and provide you with some evidence to consider, that occurs above the fog zone, but it also is associated with maritime conditions, primarily looking out over the ocean and having, I'll point that out as we go. I want to just start with where you are. You happen to be in one of the most amazing places for Manzanita. Can you hear me now? Sorry. I apologize. I'm used to being in a class. But anyway, one of the most amazing places for diversity of chaparral of any place in North America, and rivaling places like the Fynbos, as John Keeley pointed out, as a matter of fact, in a publication not too long ago concerning Maritime Chaparral. But this is a summer day. We're looking out over San Luis Obispo. We're up near Crest, the summit around Crest. West Ridge, and that's our, I'm going to try this again. For some reason it's not working, but you can see that out there is San Luis Obispo, where we are right now. And when I was just starting this research, I was with John Keeley and asked John, well, John, how would you define Maritime Chaparral? And he said, well, if you're on the ridge and you're looking out over Chaparral, and you can see the ocean, which of course you can't because of the fog, you're looking at Maritime Chaparral. I was like, whoa, that's too simple, way too simple. And what about the hypothesis of fog and the effect of fog on Chaparral? Well, okay, I had to do my research, and I did my research, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about it.
Pointer.
Oh, a pointer. The point is, yes, there it is. But the only problem is now I got to go. Too twisted guy. Anyway, so here's that from the same perspective, looking out over the Chaparral. But we see that there are two local endemics. Really, very, very local endemics. One, the Arctostaphylos ozoensis, it's actually right here, is in the fog, clearly in the fog. But then, where I'm standing, here is Arctostaphylos luciana, with gray leaves, I might add. I'll give you a little bit of the ideas about the significance of that versus the gray leaf, above the fog. So, is this Maritime Chaparral? Well, I really had some serious question about that, but that is what I'm going to talk about today. Yes, so I just put this little figure together because I think it's kind of amazing if you think about it. If you were to go out today and you just decided to explore Los Osos Valley, you would possibly be able to, in one day, run into 11 taxa of Arctostaphylos, 6 of which are true local endemics. Literally, they're just not very large at all. And this, I just would point out, is super diversity, which you aren't likely to find except for in places like the Fynbos or Kwangman in southwestern Australia. And I'd also like to just point out that this is really a good indicator of what's called beta diversity. In other words, you have this species turnover in very short distances. And so this area has a very high, I would argue, if you took just the manzanitas, which you would need to look at other species within this chaparral stands, but when you put the ceanothus and manzanitas and a whole lot of other things together, it's like an amazing turnover in space. Okay, so there we go. I'm getting it. Wait a minute. Yeah, so this is really what we're talking about. We're going to be looking at, fog creates an amazing, the refrigerator along the coast. I live in Pacifica. I know it well. Really well. But you see that, so if you look at this diagram, this came from Johnstone and Dawson. This is the fog in here. It's kind of low, around 400 meters. It gets a little, it's not quite as cool here. And as you get up into the yellow zone, it's higher and you don't get the fog, basically. So here it is. You can see how it penetrates wherever there's inundations in the coastline, like Monterey Bay, San Francisco Bay, Los Osos Valley. You can see that it's a major feature. Here's another really important thing about maritime chaparral. It's true for most chaparral, but in this case, Eric Van Dyke made an illustration of all the different kind of strange soils that occur, where the chaparral stands occur within the area of Monterey Bay. And you can see that, again, super diverse. 5 really local endemics, 5. Just this one little area. And 9 taxa. And one of the things I want to point out is that he didn't get is there's granite up here. And in the granite, there is a very distinctive local endemic, the Gavilon manzanita. And so, again, where does that fit into the grand scheme of things? So we'll talk about that. And if you take a broader look at the coast, you just visualize that fog, pattern, or the cold pattern of temperature. These are just little, kind of conceptual bullets of where incredible species diversity occur along the coast in maritime chaparral. And this is a figure again put together by, I think, Eric, that just shows all the different manzanitas that occur in all these various places along this. And the central coast, where we are right now, oops, that went out, is really kind of the big hot spot in terms of this. So, there it is. So my research really, I'm just going to talk for a second or two about because I think I'm doing okay for time. I hope. Just conceptually, I really wanted to look at how is a couple of things. First of all, is the maritime chaparral, how does the diversity within the fog zone compare to the diversity maybe above the fog zone in the what I call transition zone versus the interior chaparral? So the following figures will have this sort of coding of blue for maritime, green for what I call upland maritime chaparral now, and interior. So bear with me. Whoops. So I did, to look at diversity in chaparral and compare lowland, upland, and interior, I took about 87 plots, 0.1 hectare randomly located plots, and I basically looked at the cover and richness of those plots, did some soil samples and so on. So that was one part of my study. And then the other was to, over time, to look at a meteorological study with fog water and pre-dawn and midday water potentials. Okay, I'm just going to walk you through this really fast. So figure A, the first thing just to notice is that there's far more, even in my study, Well, this is, oh, by the way, okay, what I did with the composition plots is I took the coordinates for those plots and I basically looked at all kinds of, prism and other kinds of data that was associated with that. So I got a lot of information. But the bottom line is you can see that there's far more interior chaparral than maritime chaparral. Everybody would acknowledge that. In terms of individual plots, there was no significant difference, this is B, in terms of the numbers of species in those plots, which was kind of interesting to me. So, but then C, and this gets to the issue of beta diversity, and I found way more beta diversity in the maritime sites, both upland and lowland, compared to the interior, which was kind of interesting. And then also, as you might expect, given that this is a biodiversity hotspot, we found far more special status species in both the lowland chaparral and the upland maritime chaparral. Interesting. This is just a non-metric multivariate analysis of dispersion, which just goes to show that as you would expect, if there are more similarities of those chaparral sites in the interior, they're going to cluster more closely together. Whereas with those that had higher beta diversity, they spread out all over the map. So you can see again that both the lowland and the upland maritime chaparral have a similar dispersion of beta diversity. Does that make sense to people? Okay. There. So that's the main takeaway I want from the composition for today's discussion. Then this is kind of, basically, I'm going to try it again, that might not work, doesn't matter too much. Oh, this is great. Okay, so the north, central, and south, and you know that we have this really steep gradient between these sites. And I basically did water potentials. Really, this was to examine this whole, what is the influence of fog on maritime chaparral. So I took at the very end of the dry season, I found that, of course, the water potentials of these shrubs was the most extreme and showed up comparatively at the end of the dry season. So basically, this is what I found. This is what I really expected was, maritime chaparral. Do I have that wrong? Yeah, the maritime chaparral was in the lowland fog zone, had the most favorable water situation. This was maybe the transition that I had in my mind, and this was the interior. So they were all really significantly different. But when I looked at this other figure, you can see that over the course of a year, the upland maritime chaparral and the lowland maritime chaparral had about equally good water relations. So that I did not expect. I didn't expect them to be doing as well. So why? What's going on here? Another really important thing, if you look at, for example, looking at those vapor pressure deficits at the end of the dry season, again, you got much better in the coastal lowlands, but not as bad in the coastal uplands, and then really pretty stressed in the interior. But if you look then at wet season over the course of a year, you see that that there is a much, you can see, the green is like almost twice as much water comes in the winter rainfall. You're high up, you got a cooling waterfall, a lot more rain in the winter in there. So this actually got me to thinking, as a result of this talk, that I think I had it wrong. Or it was kind of right. My papers got to it, but it wasn't quite as pithy as what I'm going to tell you right now. And that is that, we sure do have super diversity of shrubs. And not just manzanitas, because I looked at all different kinds of shrubs, and that was factored into this beta diversity. So from the perspective of beta diversity, the upland was essentially not significantly different than the lowland maritime chaparral. There's a lot of really important and cool, mostly gray leaf manzanitas, but other kinds of species as well, in the uplands. They reflect the light. It's really about conserving the water that's there rather than getting the water. And fog, for example, doesn't really deliver much water, but it really does prevent a lot of loss of water from the shrubs over the course of the year. So in any case, that was a big surprise to me, and it makes me think that it's really kind of an artificial difference when you look at between beta diversity and, between the lowland maritime chaparral and the upland maritime chaparral. So water status, pretty similar. I guess I'm just about to end my talk, except for the subject and the topic that I think is very important here. Let me back up, because I'm not used to speaking, so forgive me for being a little bit fumbly here, but this is really an important point. Diversity, sensitive natural, both the lowland and the upland maritime chaparral present superly important diversity, okay? And it turns out that lowland maritime chaparral really benefits from the fog, but the upland maritime chaparral, similar lineages that have been diversifying over time, find refuge in the coastal area. John is right. So, but it's more because of the rains. How does that affect the fire regimes? I did not really investigate the fire regimes. I would argue that there are differences in the fire regimes between the lowland maritime chaparral, which is actually, it has been determined, has a very long fire return interval for the most part. Upland maritime chaparral is probably much less, a shorter fire return interval. This is the Bonnie Doon fire, another really hot spot of diversity. 5 minutes, yay! Anyway, it's just above. It's kind of like, there's a lot of places that are kind of like above the average fog zone, but they do get fog. This is kind of one of those places. But in any case, I think the fire return intervals are more important in this system. I did some work on this. The reduced live fuel moisture in the upland maritime chaparral at the end of the dry season, but it's significantly different than the lowland. So it's coming after the end of the dry season when you get your winter rain. So it's more vulnerable, really, I would argue, to fire frequencies. We also did this is never published, but in terms of vapor pressure deficit, another indicator of its proneness to fire. It was less prone in the lowland maritime and more or less in between in the upper. So another indicator that is different. And I guess there. We're looking out again over the valley. The point of this is that the lowland maritime chaparral, as I said early on, 2 minutes, was that is the regulatory, it has regulations to protect it. Environmentally sensitive habitat areas, for example, with the coastal act. But you don't get that on the upper upland as much. We need to know more. I'll just kind of keep on it there. We really need to know more about the upland maritime chaparral, where it occurs, because not all of it has rare species. There's, the interior comes over and the maritime kind of goes up, so this kind of interdigitates along the upper coast range, and at least in the central coast. And I guess basically I'll just say thank you for inviting me to do this. It was great to go on to reflect on it, and I'm going to, don't know what I'm going to be doing, but somehow I'm going to be trying to pushed the idea that we need to be paying more attention to the upland maritime chaparral. I'm glad you guys, folks, I should say, at least have the benefit of that insight. Okay, thank you very much.